Greetings, and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And today we are continuing our discussion of the greatest speeches in Doctor Who history, and once again joining me for the second time in a row, I actually feel lucky that I got this guy 2 weeks in a row, Mr. Frenchie.
I have a hard time just breathing most of the time. So yes, I am very happy I can find time to go 2 weeks in a row. It probably is. I've never done 2 weeks in a row with you, so it's a good thing. But yeah,
that's why I feel lucky.
Let's get our timey-wimey on. This is something I'm a bit more familiar. I do love classic Who, but I started with modern Who, and for me, modern Who, like a lot of people, and for me, modern Who is so much more dramatic, which I like, which there is drama in the first one, but you get the sense of epicness and drama at the same time. And for me, that's where I align more into. So I can't wait to go through this.
Yeah, and I think the differences between the two really just encapsulates the differences of how television in general was done in each of those eras. And that's why the modern stuff is more dramatic.
It's like Star Trek. It is the reflection of the times of television. Going from the first OG to now, not the same thing. Enjoyable all the least, but yes. Now it's so much more serious.
Yeah.
Same thing for Doctor Who. But Doctor Who does fringe on the what the F,
Yeah, well, that's kind of the bread and butter of the franchise sometimes. Now, do you remember that last week in the birthday section, we had like 17,000 people and we could basically just do the entire episode just with the birthday people?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so now it's the complete opposite. We got 5 people.
Yes.
5 people.
That was freaking long, man.
Yeah, that was a lot. So weirdly enough, we only got 5 people. Of course, we are counting down from the 6th of June all the way to the 12th, but really we got 3 people on the 8th, and then like 1 on the 10th and 1 on the 11th. So
not popular days, apparently. Okay.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. And this is where kind of the obscure starts to begin. On the 8th, we have Derek Newark.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you remember him, of course, right? He was in 2 episodes. Yeah, he played Za, the caveman, in the first ever Doctor Who serial, and he also played Greg Sutton in Inferno. But I think, just the fact that he was kind of the first proper character we meet outside of the Doctor and companions in Doctor Who, I think that earns him a spot on the list.
Yeah, but that's earned by a spot by default, not by performance.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I would have also had Jeremy Young, technically the first villain, who was also in that episode, except his birth date is completely unknown, and I couldn't find it. So, second best is what I get. And now, also on the 8th, Mr. Peter Grimwade. He, of course, started as a production assistant on the 4th Doctor era before becoming a full-on director on Full Circle, Logopolis, Kinda, and Earthshock, as well as a writer for Time Flight, Mordwin Undead, and Planet of Fire. The several iconic 5th Doctor episodes there. And also on the 8th, this is where we finally get into the big leagues this week. The 6th Doctor, Colin Baker, a hugely underrated Doctor, in my opinion, mostly because his TV stuff sucks, but his audio stuff is arguably some of the best Doctor Who writing of all time, and I highly recommend people check those out. And not the 10th, the 9th, Mr. David Troughton, the son of Patrick Troughton, who, of course, appeared in several episodes in the classic series. He was a soldier in the War Games. He was an unnamed security guard in The Enemy of the World. He also then went on to play King Peladon of Peladon in The Curse of Peladon, and of course he returned in The Prisoner of Peladon on Big Finish. He played Professor Winfield Hobbs in Midnight alongside David Tennant. He narrated a lot of the McVinnis Short Trips volumes. He played the Black Guardian on several occasions. This guy's all over. And of course, he's the son of a doctor, so he's got to be on the list as well. It sounded like you wanted to say something there.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. And finally, on the 11th, Mr. Kit Pedler. Apologies, this is kind of the only image I could find at the time. But yeah, he co-created the Cybermen. Like
Nice.
he wrote the 10th Planet, the Moon Base, and Tomb of the Cybermen, and also slightly helped along with the War Machines, the Wheel in Space, and the Invasion. But I mean, he co-created the Cybermen. It was Kit Pedler and Gary Davis, or Jerry Davis. I'm never quite sure which of which is which, but yeah. I mean, he's co-creator of the Cybermen, so he's got to be on the list. So the incredibly short list of people we had today, thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. Now, on to the main topic of today's episode, speeches. We're continuing with these speeches now. I gotta be honest, there are a lot less speeches than in the previous episode, but most of them, for the most part, are much longer and definitely more epic. I was considering having the Eighth Doctor speech from the Night of the Doctor, as well as the War Doctor speech from Day of the Doctor on here, but I wasn't quite sure if they would fit the mold for this episode. I just wanted to focus on the general modern Doctors and save these speeches for another time. But yeah, so before we dissect these speeches and dive into them, can you tell me how do you think the quality of speech making has changed between the classic series and the modern series?
Oh, I mean, a lot more impactful, I guess, and theatrical, and probably better written, because there's some good classic Doctor Who speeches, but there's some doctors you have a hard time finding was one-liners that really, So
Yeah.
I'm expecting for all Doctors something a lot more composed and something a lot more meatier than in overall general feeling.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell that in this era they leaned in heavily to the speech making nature of the Doctor. And remember, also, this is now a post Time War Doctor. All these Doctors have seen things that they struggle to.
And also the Doctor uses it as a sometimes as a diversion tool. He is so good in the verbal that he can use it as a weapon too, because there is a message, but he can stall it for time, like we've seen it multiple times. You can use it to antagonize his villains as well. So there's a lot more uses of the speech as more than just a plot line in this modern Doctor Who, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just as you alluded to, with some of the Doctors, I really had to search far and wide to find a good one. With some of these, I really just had to find one that was a cut above the rest.
Yeah.
And because I didn't really get to use it last time I did something with Doctor Who speeches on this channel, and a certain Ryan Payne called me out on it, I decided to go with the Ninth Doctor's speech from the episode Rose. Really kind of the first proper speech we get in the modern series of Doctor Who, when Rose asks him to tell her who he really is, and he just goes, do you know like we were saying about the Earth revolving? It's like when you're a kid. First time they tell you that the world's turning and you just can't quite believe it because everything looks like it's standing still. I can feel it. The turn of the Earth. The ground beneath our feet is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and the entire planet is hurtling around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour, and I can feel it. We're falling through space, you and me, clinging to the skin of this tiny little world, and if we let go, that's who I am. Now forget me, Rose Tyler. Go home. Now, you hate the Ninth Doctor. What do you think?
Well, it's not that I hate him. It's the fact that he never, like, with the back and story of this doctor and the actor, how much he hated the role, it does show in the performance. Although he is a very underrated doctor because he has moments like this, like there's almost this mature control saying like, you want to know who I am, I'll explain it in the most mind-blowing way to show you I am something different and I know something bad is going to happen to you if you follow me, so stop it. But in the most eloquent way, the fact that he's so different that he feels the movement of the galaxy compared to us, that we're like, hey, it's everything is still. He is a very, very profound and also scary doctor. If you think about it, that's how we explain who he is.
Yeah, and just to clarify, he didn't technically hate the role. He just hated working in that type of environment because let's not forget he did come back for Big Finish as the same character, and he's loving it. Like he keeps coming back and back, and he enjoys the role. He loves being the Doctor. It's just working in that specific studio environment really left a sour taste in his mouth, and it's a very unfortunate thing that happened. But overall, what a great way to open not just the modern series, but just him as this new Doctor. Right off the bat, this sets you up that this ain't your granddaddy's Doctor anymore.
No.
This new modern take on the show, it's still gonna be the same show you love, but the approach is gonna be so different. And if you're not on board with it, like you can still go ahead and watch the old show. It's just this is how the show is done now. This is how we're going forward with this character from here on out. And from a doctor's first speech to kind of a doctor's final speech for the David Tennant Doctor.
Okay.
Sorry, I was kind of struggling to find again the right one to use
Yeah, because
because
Tennant is probably the best of all the doctors to deliver the speeches. He has such a charisma and a beat to his deliveries that are made for epic speeches.
I still think that the best in Doctor Who speecher is a different Doctor, but we'll
Okay.
talk about him later. But Tennant is way up there just in terms of pure doctorness.
Yeah,
A term
exactly.
I invented specifically for the Doctor, but I mean, like I said, he has so many great moments, but again, it's tough to pin down the one speech that really encapsulates this entire Doctor in one scene. So I went with his closing speech from the ending moments of the End of Time Part 2. And full disclosure, I did consider using his speech from the Voyage of the Dam, which I already used in another Doctor Who stream that we did live, I believe. And once again, the great Ryan Penn called me out on it, saying he's not really a speech, it's more of a statement. I still consider it a speech, but there was also him talking to Martha about the truth of Gallifrey, that why he lied to her. There's also him explaining the backstory of the Master. But I mean, it's sorry, still struggling with the cold, and reading all these speeches doesn't help. But just him breaking down in his final moments, realizing his end is nigh, is I think the definitive 10th Doctor speech right then and there. So after stopping the Master, well, technically the Master really did help, but after stopping the Time Lords of Gallifrey from coming back, and Gallifrey was back into the Time War, and the Earth was saved, he thought he narrowly escaped, avoided death, and then he realized that the Fornox wasn't really talking about the Master; it was actually talking about Wilf. And after Wilf makes a point to notify him that the machine that he's stuck in is making some sort of a weird noise, he just goes to town on the script and goes, yeah, the Master left the nuclear bolt running. It's gone into overload. Not dangerous, is it? No, because all the excess radiation gets fed inside there. Vinvochi glass contains it. All 5,000 rands worth of blood, that thing. Said it's uncritical. Touch one control and it spreads. Even this would say it off. I'm sorry. I know. Look, just leave me. I'm an old man, doctor. I've had my time. Okay, right then, I will. Because you had to go in there, didn't you? You had to go and get stuck. Oh, yes. Because that's who you are, Wilfred. You're always this. Waiting for me all this time. Look, just leave me. Well, exactly. Look at you. Not remotely important. But me, I could do so much more. So much more! But this is what I get. My reward. And it's not fair! Lived too long. Wilfred, it's my honor. Now you talk while I clear my throat.
Yeah, this is the coughing episode. All right. Yeah, like this is why I love David Tennant, and I find he is the best speech maker of all doctors. It's that sense of urgency and that cynicism. That as long as he is optimist compared to the doctor after him, he's not that positive, but he has his moments. But with the moments that the drop too much in the water and he explodes is so it's sharp like a knife. It cuts through, and there's something about that quality that you don't really find in other doctors. The other doctors have amazing theatrical speeches, but they're a bit over the top, and they're a bit like they have these moments, but they don't get you as much, in my opinion, than the very direct and very realistic approach of that cynicism.
Yeah, and I think what really encapsulates this speech in the best way is that he spent the better part of several episodes now trying to avoid his own death. Even more so if you go into some of the expanded media stuff. But when it's finally there, face to face with what's about to come, like, he knows there's no way he's gonna leave Wilf there. There's no way he's just gonna abandon him like some, I don't know, not doctor. Like, he knows he has to save him. He knows he has to sacrifice himself to save Wilf. But he's just venting. Like, that's really what he is. He's going through, I can't remember how many of them, but all, like, is it 5 stages of grief in that one scene of, like, the denial, acceptance.
Let's say yes.
Yeah. He's basically going through all these emotions in just one scene with one speech, going all around the room, throwing stuff, before coming into what he knew that he eventually was going to do from the very beginning, and just save Wilf. And that just really just shows you that in the end, he, unlike what he, I mean, I kind of go back to the Family of Blood episodes where Joan Redford tells him that the human John Smith was braver than him because he chose to change and he chose to die. And at the end of the day, this doctor really, when you think about it, he avoided death for such a very long time, with the Master aging him up to his full 900 years, with the Meta Crisis Doctor literally using regeneration energy to cheat death beyond what a Time Lord is even supposed to do. This doctor spent this whole time avoiding death and trying to cheat death in any way he can, before right in his final moments he accepted it and moved on and realized that this is what he needed to do. And like, you look at all the other doctors in the modern series especially, they all had that moment of, yeah, okay, I reached my time, it's my end,
And there's a reason I think they're bringing Tennant back in the new season before they introduce a new Doctor, because he didn't never wanted to leave.
He didn't
He
want to go.
has this will to live and to still have a purpose that, like I said, the most Doctors like, okay, I'm gone. He's like, no, I'm still be back somehow, and he will be back.
Yeah, because he knows those teeth. So now on to what I think is the king of speeches.
I knew you were going, and I don't disagree, but it's a bit too theatrical sometimes. That the emotion is lost by the overacting, in my opinion.
Here's the way I see it: is Tennant brings the acting to the speeches, but where the Matt Smith Doctor and even the Peter Capaldi Doctor benefit is having the Stephen Moffat writing behind it. And I have my issues with Stephen Moffat
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I hate to admit it, but four speeches they were good. Yeah. Okay. So I do understand your point. We'll agree to disagree, but I do understand your point. It is a valid point. It is great writing, and put it to David Tennant, he would have done as good. But when I'm looking about the performances itself, I would have hoped David Tennant would have done certain of the scenes that Matt Smith did. So
Yeah. Like some of these scenes, you could see David Tennant's Doctor in those speeches.
oh yeah.
And it would have made them so much better. But again, I think the most important, I think a speech is split in two. There's the delivery, and then there's the actual dialogue.
Yeah.
To the point where one of these speeches we're talking about today, it's part of a two-parter, entirely written by one writer, except for Stephen Moffat came in to write specifically that one speech of dialogue, which really elevated the two-parter far beyond what it normally should have been. And the one I chose for Matt Smith, and again, there are so many really good ones. I mean, just look at the background behind us for a second. Oops.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Didn't work. Didn't click right. But yeah, that speech alone should have put Matt Smith in the conversation for one of the best speech makers. But I chose what I consider one of the best speeches in Doctor Who of all time, which is weird considering what happens. Which is weird for me because of what happens next. The Rings of Akaten speech.
Mm.
Did you think I'd have any other speech in mind, by the way, before we go on to it?
No, not really.
Yeah, because there are a lot I could have chosen. I mean, I think for the next Doctor, it's pretty obvious which one I chose and why. But
And even then, not for me, because I can't even remember what I said 5 minutes ago. So don't ask me to remember speeches.
okay, so after realizing that, sorry, that Akaten isn't really a god, but rather a planet-sized parasite, just stealing people's memories and emotions. Hold on, I got it. I did
Alive?
an what?
Are you alive?
Barely. I did an episode with Soda like a few hours earlier, and I was fine. I don't know why it's. Maybe it's overly speaking. It's doing it to me. I don't know, but yeah. After the Doctor kind of struggles with how is the hell is he going to beat this thing? Like this is by far the biggest Doctor Who monster of all time, beating Kroll by several thousand feet. But what he eventually decides is he's just going to do what the Doctor does best. He just yells at it, and what he decides to yell at is okay then that's what I'll do. What?
You don't have to scream for this one. I'd say scream 50%. Save your voice, 50. Save your voice.
You either do it right or not at all.
Okay, don't complain. You can't speak after. I'm just saying.
I'll just have to live with that. Okay, then. That's what I'll do. I'll tell you a story. Can you hear them? All these people who lived in terror of you and your judgment. All these people whose ancestors devoted themselves, sacrificed themselves to you. Can you hear them singing? Oh, you like to think you're a god, but you're not a god. You're just a parasite eating out with jealousy and envy and longing for the lives of others. You feed on them, on the memory of love and loss and birth and death and joy and sorrow. So, go on then. Take mine. Take my memories. But I hope you've got a big appetite, because I have lived a long life and I have seen a few things. I walked away from the last great time war. I marked the passing of the Time Lords. I saw the birth of the universe and I watched as time ran out, moment by moment, until nothing remained. No time, no space, just me. I walked in universes where the laws of physics were devised by the mind of a madman. And I've watched universes freeze and creations burn. I have seen things you wouldn't believe. I have lost things you will never understand. And I know things. Secrets that must never be told. Knowledge that must never be spoken. Knowledge that would make parasite gods blaze. So come on then! Take it! Take it all, baby! Have it! You have it all! And then, of course, the episode ends and nothing else happens after that, right? Right?
Yeah. Well, it almost feels like a god talking to a god. It's funny. Like, you think you're a god? Take my knowledge and see how powerful I am.
Yeah.
It really attests to the wisdom, but also the power of the Doctor facing what most people would consider, yes, a god in a sense, but facing it and having the pompous saying, "You want it? Take it. I hope you have Advil, motherfucker."
Yeah. Which, and I'm sorry to do this, it should have fucking killed the thing. You didn't need the stupid scene with the leaf, but whatever. Zen. I am Zen. And you know something else? All that yelling, I think, did wonders for my throat. Because, it actually cleared it up a little bit. So maybe I should have
Yeah.
yelled.
And it's also maybe the calm before the storm, and that'd be by the end of the episode, be like, no.
Well, let's just hope that in this instance you're wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much else to add for the scene. You pretty much nailed it. It's a god yelling at another god.
Yeah. Which begs the question, does God really exist in the universe of Doctor Who?
I mean, every once in a while they find that real gods, or what people at one point considered to be real gods, were actually aliens from another planet or another dimension. I mean, they did it with the Egyptian gods, with the Osirians. They did it with the Norse gods.
It goes to show that the concept of God in Doctor Who is the most powerful being until a more powerful being finds it and destroys it. It's just so powerful that normal existence could not handle it, except, again, qualifies, in my opinion, at this point, Doctor Who being a god, especially if we're tying into the last seasons with the last Doctor. We don't really know where Doctor Who comes from. He is an entity somehow. So it does qualify him for me as God of the universe, because there's nothing that was able to defeat it yet. He is the ultimate power that always finds a way to win.
Yeah, and he kind of eats gods for breakfast.
Look at the speech he just did. Again, most characters, you go against a planet-sized parasite that just feeds off of things, yeah, the most wouldn't have to pop is saying, "Hey, I got bigger balls than you do. Come on."
Yeah, bring it. And this is kind of a tangent, but I was at one point or another trying to convince Taco to have the Doctor as one of the characters for his the Geek Gauntlets that he does every once in a while, and I proposed the Doctor versus Doctor Manhattan. I think if anyone could
It's Doctor Who, yeah.
if
It
anyone
really
could
would.
convince Doctor Manhattan to forfeit, it'll be the Doctor. And then I had some time to think of it and realized that you just cannot have the Doctor in this scenario because not only he would beat almost everyone you can throw at him, there's also the matter of he's going to find out who's doing this Geek Gauntlet and take them out. That's why you can't put him in this context. Like this is what this character does. He doesn't play by the rules. He always thinks outside the box. He always finds the unconventional way to win. And
Yeah, but okay, if we're going that route, there's one thing the Doctor has never faced is a being that's able to change reality at a snap of a finger and be aware of all realities, right? That is a real definition of a god. That omnipresent, he can control every aspect. He can make sure the TARDIS never existed, because the a level of power of Dr. Manhattan, Doctor Who has never faced.
true, but he's always up for a challenge.
Yeah,
And Dr. Manhattan has shown that he can be reasoned with. Like he doesn't just make rash decisions at the drop of a hat.
no, for sure. But to go down that route, the Doctor will have to go through a dilemma of the Daleks or not, that to destroy the Daleks or not. And the Doctor always goes for the good. And like it or not, sometimes does hard decisions, but instead of like Elson, a war doctor, has never really made those decisions 100%. And Dr. Manhattan, to be able to reason with him, you might go in that zone that a doctor usually never permits himself to do it. And she'll try to find another way, and that's where he fails.
No, because here's the thing. As the rules by Taco apply, it's a fight to the death or submission. He doesn't have to kill Dr. Manhattan. He just has to convince him to forfeit, to lose, and
But I
just
know,
go and live on a planet somewhere.
and for him to be convinced to lose Dr. Manhattan, to forfeit because the logic is there, Doctor Who might have to do something that is not in his nature. Because look at what like Dr. Manhattan had to choose between, stopping the bad guy or letting a part of the population die in order for the world to live. Doctor Who would have never settled for that and would have never won the argument. So
The Doctor has faced that decision in the Time War, did it, and then went back and changed his mind.
yeah, exactly. And you can't, first of all, you can't do that because Dr. Manhattan is gonna know that you're going back from time because he sees all time and all the avenues per se. So with Dr. Manhattan, if you try to betray him by going to the past, he knows already, and he's going to implement that in his argument, and
I
he
don't think
will
he's
not.
going to betray them. I don't think he's going to want to betray him. He just is going to convince him that he has to
Okay,
win for the Geek Gauntlet to end.
we 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 digress.
Yeah, and only halfway through the episode. But can I just say that this conversation really fits your background perfectly?
Thank you.
Now, before we answer the obvious question, which speech from Capaldi do you think I went with?
I can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago. Really, bro?
And yet you can remember things about Dr. Manhattan and the drop of a hat.
Yes, because it does not require speech. Like I'm good with ideas. Don't ask me to tell you what you just said.
Okay, what's my name? Just kidding. So I mean, it's this. Like, did you expect anything else?
Yeah, but he also looks like he's constipated. One or two.
Probably not the best picture to use, but it's the one I have.
Something surprised him really much from behind.
Yeah, I mean that's the eyebrows at work. What can I
Yeah.
say?
But at the same time, I like this doctor for like no other doctor has that face. The sheer what do you call this face? What emotion is this else than anger? Anger is too obvious. There's underlaying of emotions. There's annoyance. There is this intensity in the eyes that yes, the other doctors have, but nothing like him.
I
His
think
speeches really worked because of as much yes delivery, but it's also his physicality in his face that yes the other doctors had, but not as intense.
in case in point, in this scene, he commands the room. Like he walks around the room and uses the enclosed space of it all to his advantage. Now, this speech technically is a conversation between the Doctor and Bonnie, the Zygon leader, and a little bit of Kate Stewart in there, but this is by far the longest speech we'll be talking about today, and I think of all the speeches we've already talked about, so let's get into it. You just want cruelty to beget cruelty. You're not superior to people who were cruel to you. You're just a whole bunch of new cruel people. A whole bunch of new cruel people being cruel to some other people who will end up being cruel to you. The only way anyone can live in peace is if they're prepared to forgive. Why don't you break the cycle? Why should we? What is it you actually want? War. Ah, and when that war is over, when when you, when you have when you have the homeland free of humans, what what do you think what do you think it's going to be like? Do you know? Have you thought about it? Have you given it any consideration? Because you're very close to getting what you want. But what's it going to be like? Paint me a picture. Are you going to live in houses? Do you want people to go to work? Why don't be holidays? Oh, will there be music? Do you think people will be allowed to play violins? Who will make the violins? Well, oh, you don't actually know, do you? Because just like every other tantruming child in history, Bonnie, you you don't actually know what you want. So let me ask you a question about this brave new world of yours. When you've killed all the bad guys, and when it's all perfect and just and fair, when you've finally got it exactly the way you want it, what are you going to do with the people like you, the troublemakers? How are you going to protect your glorious evolution from the next one? We'll win. Oh, will you? Well, maybe you will win. But nobody wins for long. The wheel just keeps turning. So come on, break the cycle. Why are you still talking? Because I want to get you to see, and I'm almost there. Do you know what I see, Doctor? A box. A box with everything I need. A 50% chance for us too. And we're off! Fingers on buzzers! Are we feeling lucky? Are you ready to play the game? Who's gonna be quickest? Who's gonna be luckiest? This is not a game! No, this is not a game, sweetheart, and I mean that most sincerely. Why are you doing this? Yes, I'd quite like to know that too. You set this up. Why? Because it's not a game, Kate! This is the scale model of war! Every war ever fought right there in front of you. Because it's always the same. When you fire that first shot, no matter how right you feel, you have no idea who's going to die. You don't know whose children are going to scream and burn. How many hearts will be broken? How many lives shattered? How much blood will spill into that? That's what they're always going to do. Sit down and talk. Listen to me. Listen, I just want you to think. Do you know what thinking is? It's just a fancy word for changing your mind. I will not change my mind. Then you will die stupid. Alternatively, you could step away from that box. You can walk right out of that door, and you can stand your revolution down. No, I'm not stopping this, Doctor. I started it. I will not stop it. You think to let me go after what I've done? You're all the same, you screaming kids. You know that? Look at me. I'm unforgivable. Well, here's the unforgivable. I forgive you. After all you've done, I forgive you. You don't understand. You will never understand. I don't understand? Are you kidding? Me? Of course I understand. I mean, you call this a war, this funny little thing? This is not a war. I fought in a bigger war than you will ever know. I did worse things than you could ever imagine when I close my eyes. I hear more screams than anyone could ever be able to count. And do you know what you do with all that pain? Shall I tell you where you put it? Hold it tight till it burns your hand. And you say this: no one else will ever have to live like this. No one else will have to feel this pain. Not on my watch. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I know. I know. Thank you. Well, it's empty, isn't it? Both boxes. There's nothing in them, just buttons. Of course. But you know how you know that? Because you started to think like me. It's hell, isn't it? No one should have to think like that. And no one will. Not on our watch. Gotcha. How can you be so sure? Because I have it as a disadvantage, Dajajala. I know that face.
All right, for me, this speech and this doctor is the equivalent of that war veteran that's seen way too much, grandfather that is yelling too much, and the whole family is telling him to stop yelling and not and stop being mad because he already had 4 heart attacks in his lifetime. He's going to give a 5th one. He is
Having two helps.
Huh?
Having 2 hearts does help a lot.
It does, but still, you still need both hearts. That being said, he is still that grandfather that is like, stop your bullshit. You're being a moron, and I'm going to try to use logic, but I'm also going to treat you like a freaking kid. Because that's what you are to me. You're kids. You are younglings that just are controlled by your goddamn emotions, and you're not thinking properly. And I'm going to set us straight, and I'm going to make you question everything, but in the most grumpy way.
Because he's the doctor.
Yeah.
And this really just goes out to every war that ever happened, including certain wars and certain conflicts happening in certain parts of the world right now. And just really, this is the speech, I think, that could end wars. The problem is no one's really willing to listen. Everyone likes the episode, but they still, at the end of the day, they just go back into that tantruming child persona that the doctor mentions and you alluded to in your breakdown of the speech. Oh,
I'm there.
So, do you agree?
Yeah. I was actually in pain and trying to fight the pain while you're talking, so I didn't really listen the last 20 seconds.
Oh well, thank you.
You're
Weird.
welcome.
I'm the one yelling, and he's the one in pain. It's the synergy between us that I like the most.
Thank you.
Okay. So while you're dealing with some stuff, I think we can just jump into the final speech and end the episode there. Are you good?
Yeah, good. Don't worry about it.
Cool. So with the 13th Doctor, we now have a really good actress in a role that sadly wasn't written as well as the last couple of Doctors. And of course, as I alluded to earlier, we kind of lost the Stephen Moffat talent for speech making. But she does have several good ones. And I know you don't remember anything. You don't remember shit. But can you at least, off the top of your head, think of a speech that you would use? Okay. I have no idea what that was supposed to be.
That was my answer. No, I don't, 50.
Okay. So the one I went with is the one from The Haunting of Villa Diodati, where they're and I apologize about the image. I couldn't find the image from that specific moment, but that's the one we're going for. At least it's from the episode. At least it's from the episode. But it's when they're all contemplating about whether to kill Percy Shelley, Mary Shelley's husband, for the sake of not allowing the lone Cyberman Ashad, sorry, to gain the Cyberium and essentially rise to power and restart the cyber race all over again. Now the companions, oddly enough, are all for it. Let's kill the guy to save the rest of the universe. But the Doctor, of course, knows that that will be changing history, and that is a big no-no. At least in the way that they're proposing to do it. So what? So then she just turns around and basically turns on her companions and starts to tell them, words matter. One death, one ripple, and history will change in a blink. The future will not be the world you know. The world you came from, the world you were created in, won't exist, so neither will you. It's not just his life at stake, it's yours. You want to sacrifice yourself for this? You want me to sacrifice you? You want to call it now, all of you? Yeah, because sometimes this team structure isn't flat, it's mountainous, with me at the summit, in the stratosphere, alone, left to choose. Save the poet, save the universe. Watch people burn now or tomorrow. Sometimes even I can't win.
And for me, this doctor in this speech reminds me of like a very cool university teacher that has a swag, but also is able to talk to a student and make them, compared to the last doctor, in a non-grumpy way, think, use your brain, but in the most educated and still respectful. Like Peter Capaldi, there's a lack of respect in the sense that I still think that I'm better than you aspect, where compared to her, it doesn't feel like I'm better than you. It just feels like you're not educating yourself on this, so this is the information.
Yeah, and again, these two speeches are kind of the same thing. Stop and think before you act. It's just both doctors have a different approach to this philosophy. And of course, the speech does kind of help. They do stop. They do think about it, and then of course the episode itself leads to the what we now know as the timeless child. Shall we say fiasco? But that is a story for another time. So, what do you think about? Can you give us a quick breakdown of all 5 speeches we've covered today? And do you think I should have at least considered having the other doctors in the modern era's speeches in this as well?
I hate you because you keep forgetting that I don't remember speeches. I hate you. Like you said before, a lot of the themes that going back and the great speeches you've picked is the fact that stop and think, in different variations, but a lot of like, I'm giving you the answer. Stop being idiots, and for me, really shows that a doctor is there to help, but is not all good and is not all bad. There's this need to make people awake around him and her, that is so great that it always comes back in every doctor. But yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about at this point. So
yeah, and the Doctor's always been this kind of character that he doesn't make the decisions for you. He makes you see the world through their eyes there because, he, her, they make you see the world through their eyes and let you choose for yourself and make the decisions that you need to for your own survival. And I think the best subtle example for it is in probably the episode you least thought you'd hear in this episode today, but it's from the episode The Lodger, where he's sort of living as a roommate with uh, Craig Owens, and his girlfriend. She has these grand plans for herself. She wants to leave. She wants to travel the world, and the doctor's like, "What's keeping you? What's stopping you?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you couldn't handle that. No, I think that's way too big for you." And she just gets up and goes, "No, I can do whatever I want to." And he just gives her a smile, like now she sees, yes, the only thing that's stopping her is herself, and she can do what she wants to do whenever she wants to. And that's really what the doctor does best, is that he lets people, rather they let people see that they're really the people, that they are the object of their own destruction. And I think that's why this character is so relevant in any era that the show exists in. So, should we go to the plugs now? Because I see you kind of dealing with some stuff over there.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, sure. So you can find me a lot of places, but you can also find me in the Multiverse of Geekdom on my show Geeking Out, which I just did with Mr. 50 here. We talked about Pokemon. So yeah, go check that out. Really good episode. If not, you can see me on this Tuesday with an actual metaphysicist that's been in the domain for 40 years, and we really go deep into what is the spirit and how science is trying to understand it.
Sounds very cool.
And complicated and confusing, which is awesome.
Yeah. Wouldn't have it any other way. And as for me, you can find me on my own YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way up to 2022. And by the time this comes out, which is tomorrow from my point of view, I have already uploaded the last of the pure historicals, the Highlanders, and already someone had to contradict me in the comments. And of course, I contradicted them back. So go ahead and check that one out. I also am on this channel every Monday on this show, and every Thursday on Fun with Flags with my good friend Soda. And you can also check out all these other wonderful shows and channels from in and around the Benverse multiverse. We have got something to talk about with Taco. We got Galaxy Geeks. We got Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, A-Town Reviews, and even though it's not on this image, we also have In the Front Row, which is also another great channel that you should check out for yourselves. So thank you all for watching. I hope you really enjoyed these speeches. They were a murder on my throat, and I'm probably going to be very upset with myself tomorrow morning, but you know what? If it gets the views, it was worth it. And if you were entertained, it was also worth it, because if you're not entertained, so yeah, thank you for watching again. And in the words of Missy herself,
don't forget to like and subscribe.
Goodbye.